Joining in our show today is Lisa Larter. Lisa is a digital marketing expert, business strategist, and founder of Lisa Larter Group. She believes that if someone can start a business, so can you. And she is proof of that. As a high school dropout who successfully built and scaled her own leading businesses, today Lisa helps businesses navigate entrepreneurship to increase sales and profits. Thanks for being on our show today, Lisa.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I always start off with a question that really can go on for a very long time, but I do want to ask you, how did you get started in this whole journey? Can you give us a little history about yourself and what do people know you for today?
Well, I got started in the entrepreneurial journey when I was a little kid, really. I was raised by a single mom, and my mom didn't have a lot of money, and I had a lot of things that I wanted to have. And my mom told me if I wanted to have those things, I was going to need to learn how to make my own money. So at the age of 12 years old, I set out to sell things at the local flea market. I learned how to make crafts and chocolates, and I learned how to generate income for myself so that I could have the things that I wanted in life. And so I always knew that I aspired to own my own business one day. And I grew up working in retail. I worked for ClearNet, which became TELUS, and I helped them build their national distribution channel for retail stores across Canada. And then I made a lateral move. I left and I opened my own TELUS dealership. And I aspired one day to coach, consult, and guide other business owners on how to build successful and profitable businesses. But I actually didn't have a lot of self-confidence. I thought I needed to own my own small business and make it successful before people would take me seriously. And so within 60 days of opening that dealership and investing all kinds of money in a bricks and mortar location, I had my first consulting opportunity. And as the retail business continued to grow, so did my consulting work and my strategy and advisement and marketing implementation services. And so eventually I became an absentee business owner because my consulting business was busier than my store. And in 2012, I sold the store and I haven't looked back since.
That's amazing. So tell me a little bit about growing up. You mentioned you dropped out of high school. Mm-hmm. How did your parents feel about that? And I know you mentioned you were doing a lot of retail. How did that evolve into getting your first opportunity in TELUS, et cetera?
Well, my parents split up and I moved in, with my dad in grade 13. And, teenage girls should not live with their dads for the first time because you butt heads, right? And my dad had two very young children. He was not used to my study habits. And so one night, my dad and I are very much alike. And so because we're very much alike, we butted heads a lot. And he told me one night that I didn't have what it took to go to university. And so being the bratty kid that I was, I decided that I would show him and I would quit school. And so I knew I had what it took to go to university because I was an honor student most of the way through school. But financially, it was going to be challenging for me to go to university back then because I lived with my dad and therefore I didn't qualify for OSAP, but I didn't really have enough money to pay to go to school. So I quit school and I got a job in retail, and the intention was to go back to school that fall. But I was a natural salesperson and a natural leader. And so I worked my way up in retail very quickly. I was able to impact sales. I was able to lead a team, support a team. And in less than a year, I was making more money than my mom had ever made. And so I really only worked for 3 companies. I worked for the Canada Group. I worked for Suzy Shear, where I became an area manager, operations manager, overseeing multiple locations. And then I was recruited by ClearNet. And when I was recruited by ClearNet, I was really looking for an opportunity to get out of clothing retail and to do something that was a little bit more sophisticated. And the knowledge that I had in terms of how to be a successful retailer was really valuable to ClearNet when they first started opening stores. And so when I got recruited to work there, my career path was pretty awesome. I came in with all of this subject matter expertise that no one else had, and it allowed me to grow and really get additional layers of responsibility up until when I left. When I left, I had a national scope of responsibility. I supported the landline stores that were independently owned by TELUS, and I supported a bunch of different regions in Eastern Canada for the wireless stores. And there was about 1,000 people on my team and about $100 million in sales.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, growing up, were there people that really you looked up to, or you were trying to inspire to become, or kind of like motivated you to become who you were?
The only person that motivated me to become who I was my mom, and it was wanting to have a life that was different from her life. My mom had a really hard time. I mean, she was a single mom. She didn't have a lot of money. She had to stay in jobs that she hated because she was afraid to leave, because she was afraid of losing her daughter. And my mom always said to me, I don't want your life to be like this. And so I think I didn't have a role model. I didn't have someone around me that was uber successful that I aspired to be like. And I just knew that I wanted a different life than what my mom had. And I think that learning how to generate income for myself at the age of 12 really bolstered my self-confidence in terms of being able to take care of myself. And, basically that's what fueled me, is just wanting to create something different.
That's amazing. I mean, it's hard for people to really understand unless you're living in your shoes, right? Like seeing what you've seen, knowing what you know. Like a lot of people are not like going through the same experiences in life that you are. So dropping out, it may sound like it's a bad thing, but you made the most out of it, right? And you went out and did something to earn revenue, income, or money to live a better life, right? So that's amazing. Regarding like while you were starting your own consulting business and you had your own retail shop, did you have mentors or coaches throughout that time?
Not really. I remember when I first started my retail business, going to networking events, and I tended to be, I tended to know more than a lot of the other people that were in startup because of everything that I had done working for TELUS. There were a few people that mentored me. Michael Hughes is someone that took me under his wing and mentored me when I started my consulting work and guided me in terms of don't trade hours for dollars. You need to sell your time by the day or the half day. Like, he helped me formulate some packages, and he really helped me to see the value that I had to contribute. But I didn't really hire an official coach to help me in my business, in my consulting business, until it was doing over $500,000 a year. And then the first person that I hired, while he was great, I didn't have the team structure to implement everything that he was advising me to do. And so that coaching arrangement wasn't as good as it could have been. Now, in later years, I started working with Alan Weiss, and Alan Weiss is the rock star of consulting. And Alan has been a tremendous mentor to me. I've tripled the size of my business since I started working with Alan. And he has helped build my self-confidence. He's helped me look at my pricing structures differently. He refers me business. He's just taught me to experience life on a completely different level than what I would have considered possible for myself before.
That's amazing. I mean, and that's so important, right? Like self-reflecting and working not in your business, but on your business, right? When you
Mhm.
get to that point as an entrepreneur or business owner and you kind of realize like, why am I spending X amount of hours in my business? It's like having a job, right?
Mhm.
And however, you're a business owner, you have way more responsibilities than anyone can even imagine, right? Trying to understand and learn every single process from operations to accounting to sales, bookkeeping, you name it, right? Customer service, all that really matters. And so why should you be doing or carrying all these hats, right? But when did it get to that point where you kind of was looking to hire more people, or, how many, was there like a time or a moment throughout that consulting gig that you kind of realized like I should really be working on my business more and looking at how I can grow and scale the business?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I came from a role inside of a multi-billion dollar corporation where I supported a huge team of people. Of course, I wanted to get things done through other people. I've never wanted to do everything myself. Never. I mean, if you have leadership skills, you can only be a good leader if you can transfer skill to someone else and have them do what you would do as good as you would do it. So I hired people to help me in my consulting business early on. I hired a VA in the early days to help me get my blog and newsletter done. I hired an assistant to work with me, like a full-time person, I think right before I hit about $200,000 in sales. So I very, very quickly ramped up a team, and I've got quite a large team today. I think there are 20 people that work with me in my business, either as employees or as independent contractors who help us fulfill all the work that we do for our clients.
That's amazing. I mean, and this is a skill set that's very difficult, like managing people, right? And a lot of people are scared or afraid, and they might not have that skill set. But you come from a background of managing, a lot of sales reps or territory manager, that kind of role. So you bring a different dynamic to that whole business that you're running, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I've been leading people for, gosh, 30 years. So,
and
yeah.
it's hard, right? Like when people are starting off, like they want to get into entrepreneurship, they want to be their own business owner, having experience is so much more valuable than you learn from the books, or reading, or you go to some classes. Someone that's actually been in it. And I always look back at how I started the company as well. Like I've been doing sales and marketing for 20 plus years before starting my own business, right? That brings a lot more value to it
Mhm.
than someone just starting off knowing what they know in this industry, right? It
I
just
think you need
different.
both. I think you need knowledge and practice, because if you are you're in the doing work, but you're not necessarily growing and getting better, you need somebody to tell you what you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you can't learn how to fly a plane by reading a book. So I think you need knowledge and practice. I think if you're only practicing and you don't have enough knowledge, it's probably as bad as just having knowledge without ever practicing.
Yeah, and even going out and getting sales right away, right? Like that will either make you a business, or you're gonna be, looking for the next gig after, the next gig, right? Like starting off with sales is so much more important than trying to have the perfect service or perfect product for the customer, right? And then you can always pivot, you can always adapt to what kind of customers you really want to go after, right?
Well, I think sales is one small piece. Obviously, you need to know how to sell, but you also need to know how to price the product or service that you're selling, and you need to fulfill. Because if you are selling and you are churning clients because you can't deliver a great product or outcome for them, then you're working twice as hard. One of the key strategies that is a huge driver in my business's growth is my retention strategy.
Yeah.
It's keeping clients is just as important as acquiring clients. Because if you're constantly turning over clients, then it's like you're playing the shell game. You're always needing new business because you have no recurring revenue stream in your business, and that's really stressful.
Exactly. I'm very fortunate. I worked at Yellow Pages, and retention was very important. So not just retaining customers, but growth within your existing
Mm-hmm.
customer base, right? Versus the new acquisition of always looking for new clients, right? Um, you need that skill set as well, like just customer service and managing their expectations. And it is a skill set that's very difficult and challenging as well, not just pure sales, but also that being there and always offering more value and offering, something that people can continue with, right? That
Mm-hmm.
retention is so important. So that's amazing. So currently, I noticed that you do a lot of speaking as well, and you have your own workshop or your own little, event. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Sure. I speak a few times a year. It's not it's one of my biggest lead generation sources, but it's not my primary source of income. So I get paid to speak, and sometimes I speak for free if it's the right audience. And I host my own events because bringing people together that already do business with you, with people who are interested in doing business with you, is a great way to expand your business. And so I host different types of events. I host some small high-end events, and then I host a roadmap event. Roadmap is my methodology on how I help people develop strategy for their business. I do a lot of roadmap work with people one-on-one, but once or twice a year, I bring people together and I actually facilitate in a group setting how to build your own strategy for growth in your business.
That's amazing. So I wanted to get back into like some of the challenges that you kind of have faced over the years, because starting a business or being your own boss, it's never like this uphill battle. Like it's never this steep curve, right? That everyone wants. But it's usually like a lot of dips and valleys, etc. So can you tell us a little bit some of the challenges that you kind of face, some of the mistakes that you've made over the years that you can share with the audience?
Sure. So I would say there's probably three things that stand out for me. The first was in my retail bricks and mortar store. As much as I understood sales and inventory management and I knew how to read a P&L, I didn't know anything about cash flow. And so when I started that business, I was selling over $1 million a year in inventory, and I didn't understand why I was always in my credit line. You know, I'd be out of my credit line for a day and then I'd be back in my credit line for a day. I couldn't seem to get ahead. And I learned very quickly that I had a cash flow problem. I didn't understand cash flow. I didn't understand the timing of when money came in and when money came out. I didn't understand what it meant to manage my own inventory and how the more inventory I had on the shop floor, the less cash flow that I had available to operate the business. And so the biggest learning experience there for me was really getting in and becoming a master at cash flow. And I remember asking my bookkeeper at the time to create a spreadsheet to help me manage cash flow. And so he did that. And I took the spreadsheet home and I deleted everything from the spreadsheet and I filled it out again myself because I needed to understand where the numbers came from so that I really understood how the money flowed. So the biggest lesson there was cash flow. And cash flow, you know, everybody says that, customer service is the most important thing. No, cash flow is the most important thing because when you run out of money, the bank doesn't care how much your customers love you. And so if you don't know how to manage cash flow in your business, if you do not have cash on hand, you are in a really, really, really under-leveraged bad situation and at risk for going bankrupt. So that would be the first lesson that I learned. The second lesson that I learned is to really make sure that I follow up on my receivables. Because there are people who say they will pay you and they're really nice and they're really friendly and you really believe them, but then they don't. And so, there's been a couple times in my life where I have been bitten behind by people who have not paid what they owe. And what I've learned from that is typically the people that do that are the people that want me to make changes to the way that I normally do business. And so I've learned that I need to get paid up front for the work that I do. I've learned that I need to follow up closely on my accounts receivables, and I've learned to identify the flags that are associated with a client that might be a problem when it comes to getting paid. Because good clients are the clients that you say, hey, I have ABC to offer you, and they say, hey, I'm in, I want ABC, and here's the money for ABC. Bad clients are the ones that say, well, you know, I kind of like ABC, but could we do A, B, 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 and B plus D? And could we eliminate C? And could we start on A today? Could I pay you next week? Those are the flags that you need to learn to recognize when people are deviating from what success looks like. So that's a second lesson that I've learned. And the third lesson that I've learned is that every $500,000 increment in your business, you need to reevaluate your processes and your systems, or you run the risk of creating a lot of failure work where you need to redo things. And failure work is a term that I learned from Alan. If you do not have strong systems and processes in place for how you get things done, then your business can fall apart very quickly. And what I have found is the way you run a business at $500,000 is very different from the way you run a business at $1 million, at 1.5 million, et cetera. And so it's almost like every $500,000 increment, you need to step up here and say, what's going to get me to the next $500,000 increment? And you can't do that if you operate the business the way that you've been operating it to get to this level. So those would be the three biggest kind of things that I've learned in my business along the way, is to manage my cash flow, be careful when it comes to receivables and making exceptions for people, and really closely evaluate your processes and systems as the business grows if you want to continue to grow.
Those are amazing tips. I mean, I look back and exactly what you said, like getting the wrong type of clients that aren't fitting your kind of persona that you want to achieve or are trying to attract, it's just going to be more of a nightmare to try to collect the money, right? Mm-hmm. So early on, I was trying to figure out, like, how do I just get paid up front? If they really mm-hmm. want to work with you, understand what your value is, and it's okay to say no. But early on, when you're just starting, you're dying to get revenue. You're dying to just get the business going. So you'll learn very quickly who you want as ideal customers. But without that, you don't really know who is the best type of clients, right? So it's a catch-22 when you're first starting, but as you grow in your business and as you experience more and get more customers, you'll understand what we were talking about. And then, of course, the processes and becoming more efficient and figuring out what is the SOP for everything, right? Like, especially if you want to train people, you need mm-hmm. that guideline.
And is the SOP the right, standard operating procedure today?
Yes.
Because it might have been the right one a year ago, but yes. Is it still the right one today?
So every 6 months, we always change it or take a look at it and see what are the newest software and things we can improve and what are standards. So it's very important, especially when you're scaling, like growing from $500,000 to 2 or 3 million. You need these, especially if you're looking at hiring a lot more people, right? But again, when you're starting off, all these things you'll start learning when you're starting to grow your business. But you have to get to a certain threshold and hire more people to understand what this all means, right? Mm-hmm. But these are great insights because, I was very lucky in terms of like finances. I studied business finance, and I've always been pretty good with my numbers. And I married my wife, which is an accountant. So I had to really know my numbers, right? So, that is so important as well, like profit. Mm-hmm. You need to understand what is your break-even point. Why are you working for these customers if you're not making anything, right? You don't want to wash or lose money. So you have to understand, like, well, how do you price, right? And what is the margins? Mm-hmm. So it's very critical if it's a product-based or a service-based company, understand that. And what's the lifetime value of customer? Like, what is new acquisition cost? And how long do they stay? And what's the average, spend on an annual basis these customers have? Very important metrics when you're in the business, and you have to know your metrics. Until you know it. Like, as a business owner like yourself and myself, we understand that inside out, and these are the metrics that we kind of understand when we're taking on a new client, right? How much it
Mm-hmm.
costs, how much on average will they spend, and how long they'll stay.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of running a business, how have you noticed technology has played in the last couple of years for you, and has it helped your business, improved any of the processes versus when you first started your business?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we use technology every day. We're constantly looking for ways that we can automate processes so that we can be more efficient at what we're doing. We use technology to manage the workflow that our team does. We use technology to update our clients on the status of projects so they know what's going on. I can't imagine not using technology in the business.
Can you share some of the tools or softwares that have made a very incremental difference in your business?
Well, Infusionsoft is what we use for our email and autoresponders and shopping cart and all of that stuff. And I've been an Infusionsoft user for, I think, over a decade now. We use Asana for project management. I really like Asana. I like that we can invite our clients into Asana, and instead of having an inbox full of emails that they need to try to find, they can find their projects and their approvals and their status updates very easily in one spot that we have created for them. Those are probably the two most important tools that I would say we use in our business. Obviously, we use social media tools for marketing and client relationship management and all that stuff. But I think that, the Asana, it really helps us keep everything organized. And when you are organized, you can fulfill and do a better job at serving your clients.
And are you finding Asana is being used more for internal versus external, or it's great for both?
We use it for both. Okay. We use it for both. So we have all of our internal tasks and all of our internal stakeholders so that the workflow and projects are being managed. But then we also have for external work where we work with our clients in Asana as well. So the client doesn't see all of the back and forth between the team members, but what the client sees is a task that is now dependent on them, right? So let's say we've done a logo design for someone. Well, now the task with all the back and forth to get the logo design is dependent on the client's feedback and approval for that logo design. So, we've created a way that we can involve our clients in the project management tool, but we keep the internal communication separate from the communication with the client.
No, that's perfect.
Maybe way too noisy for them.
Yeah, setting it up properly so that you can automate some of this stuff, right? It's so important. And it's different because we live in this digital world. A lot of these service-based or product-based companies probably don't even need to use any of these software and tools. So it all depends on what business you're running. Like a dentist might have their own software for their own practice, right? Versus, a digital marketing agency, we deal with every single tool and software because we're always looking for efficiencies, improvements, and less errors and better, just touch points, more touch points, better quality of everything, right? Mm-hmm. And less time, I think. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's great. In terms of, I know you mentioned early on, that when you were first starting, you went to a couple of these networking groups and events. What can you say about that in terms of like starting off and starting a business or even running a business today? Do you believe in live events, networking events, or some of these workshops, trade shows, or even online forums and groups?
Well, I think community is everything when it comes to building your business. And I think it really depends on whether you are a local business who is trying to connect with a local market, or you are a global business that's trying to connect with an international market. So when I ran my bricks and mortar TELUS dealership, I did all kinds of local networking because I wanted to meet people in the community who knew me, liked me, trusted me, so that they would come to our store for their wireless needs and they would refer people to our store. As a consultant and strategist, I go to in-person events at least once a quarter, and I look for higher end events where I know my buyers hang out. So I'm not interested in going to an event. Like, I have never been to Social Media Marketing World. And I will never go to Social Media Marketing World unless I'm speaking there. Yeah. Because everybody that's going to Social Media Marketing World is in the social media marketing space, and they're not my buyers. My buyers are people that are not in that space that want my expertise. So I'm speaking at Alan Weiss's $1 Million Consulting Convention in Australia in March. That's a great place for me to go, because those consultants are all people that, don't have expertise in what I have expertise in. So I can learn from them and they can learn from me. So I'm constantly looking for places to go where I can interact with successful people and I can learn from successful people and I can build my network. But I'm not going to go to your weekly BNI group, because that's not where my buyer is today. Yes, my buyer was there when I owned my bricks and mortar store. It was a great place when I was starting out to get comfortable talking about what I did in front of people and to meet people in my community. Because remember, I came from a job where I had a national scope of responsibility. I was on a plane in a different city somewhere in Canada every single week of the year. I didn't know my local community. So I think you have to pick places that allow you to meet the right people depending on what the strategy and the objective of your business is.
That's a really good point. I mean, knowing your audience, knowing who you want to attract, and go out there. And I think the longer you're in the business, the longer then you realize who is your ideal customer, right? Then you create that profile and then you kind of figure out where are they going to be, right? And then you map that out. But early on, again, you don't know who that is, right? So you're out there testing, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, or even marketing and advertising, see what works and what doesn't work, right? And if it does work, just stick with it and continue doing it, right?
I would even argue that sometimes later on, people don't know. Sometimes later on, people don't know. I just had this conversation with a client of mine. Sometimes later on, people don't know who their biggest buyer is. Sometimes later on, people don't know where they hang out. Sometimes people are so head down doing the work that they're not thinking strategically about the communities that they should be part of. And so I think it's important for people to pause and really ask themselves that. I have made the decision to stop doing a bunch of things in my business as we move into the next year, because I know that some of those things are not going to connect me with who I want my buyer to be in the next 12 to 24 months. And so if I look at who my buyer is today and I look at the value of that buyer, I want to make sure that I'm playing in the right sandbox. I'm not, you keep talking about people when they're starting out. Well, startup is not not my buyer. So I'm very conscious of making sure that I'm not doing things. I can help startup people all day long, but the average person in startup can't afford my services. So for me to continue to try to serve that person in startup because I started there makes no sense. And I think what happens to a lot of business owners is as their business grows and evolves, they forget to look at who their buyer is today. And they still do things that they were doing 5 years ago, and it might not be serving them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, when I first started, I didn't know who that buyer was, right? And it just evolved, right? And I always look back every 6 months or even a year to see who are my great clients and how do I get more of them, right? And each year it may shift a couple of different niches and industries, and you just always have to self-reflect. So always work on your business, right? The sooner you're able to get out of working in it and hire people for the tasks that you're either wasting a lot of time or spending a lot of time doing, that is a lot less expensive to hire someone to do, less stress you're going to have, the more improvement you're going to have on the business, because then you can really strategically forecast and look for opportunities and look for ways to improve, right?
Totally.
So in terms of currently, I know you've been doing this for so many years. What drives you today? Like what keeps pushing you to become who you are, and what kind of motivates you today, Lisa?
What motivates me? I think it's different all the time. I think I'm constantly motivated. I'm very results oriented, so I'm motivated by the results that we get our clients, and I'm motivated by the results in our business. So I think that, that's kind of what keeps me going all the time, is knowing that I'm making a difference and I'm adding value and I'm helping somebody else to be successful in the work that they do in their business. Those are the things that really keep me going.
And then aside from your business, there's a lot of pillars in life, right? So what are the main factors in your business outside of business? Like, is family a huge part of your life? Community, is that a big part of your life today? And running a business, a lot of your staff is probably a part of your life as well, right? Are there other pillars that are very strong in your life right now?
Well, I would say my home life, my husband and our dogs, and the lifestyle that we're creating together is a really important part of my life. My network and community, the people that I'm connected to, are an important part of my life. Knowledge, so continuously learning, is an important part of my life. I lead a books and business club called Thought Readers, where I read a book a month with a large group of business owners. They all pay to be part of this group with me, and I love that reading. Reading is something that really fills my soul. It inspires me, and I love learning. So that's an important part of my life. I think there are other parts of my life where I would like to be a little bit less of a workaholic. I work a lot, but I work a lot because I really like what I do. It's funny, I just had this conversation with another client of mine, and I said to him, we've gotten into a bad habit together. And so when we first started working together, you sent me stuff on the weekend to review and help you with. And I did it because there was a sense of urgency to get the work done for the upcoming Monday. And I said, now what I've noticed is we've fallen into the pattern of every Saturday when you're getting caught up on work, you're sending it to me, and I'm feeling like I should respond. And I need to create some boundaries in my business so that I'm not working all the time. And so I had a really great conversation with this individual about letting me know if something's urgent, I'm going to step in and I'm going to help you. But I'm treating everything like it's urgent. And it could be that it could wait till Monday. So can you either send it to me on Friday, or can you tell me if you email me on the weekend, please respond on Monday, so that I know. So I think that, my area of opportunity is to really create more things to do outside of work, and not so many things inside of work.
And it's hard, right? Especially if you love what you do and it doesn't feel like work, right? Mm-hmm. But you come to a point where it's like, this is what I've been born to do, right? Like, it doesn't feel like every day I'm driving into work or doing something that I dread, right? I actually love what I'm doing, which is helping others achieve success or impact the world, right? So that's a great place to be. And having a good lifestyle outside of just work, like, there's a lot of pillars. Like, I'll be honest, early on, before I had my son, it was only work. But when you have a child or your dog or someone that you love, and you want to spend and ensure that they have the best life out there, and you want to be present there.
Yeah.
Like, I just stop work at 5 because I want to be picking up my son. I want to spend as much time as possible. I want to travel and do things on the weekends. And yes, I have boundaries with all my clients because they understand, like, what's most important? Why am I doing what I'm doing? It's really for all these other pillars, right?
Yeah.
And it's so important, especially running a business. You can easily get caught up, just keep working. Like, you can easily work 80, 90, 100 hours a week and not even feel like it's, a lot. But then you realize, like, you're missing out on all these other things that's happening, family events, friend events, or whatever it is, right? So it's very important. In terms of, can you talk a little bit about your community? because it seems like you've built some great communities, and it's so important to have ownership in your community, right? Like either you're doing hosting events or you're part of other communities and contributing. How did you start that? And, what is going on in terms of the ongoing aspect of it all?
That's a great question. I mean, I've always just kind of I've found communities that resonate with me, and I continue to be part of them as long as they resonate and feel good and feel aligned. If they don't feel good and aligned anymore, then I just stop, basically participating in those communities.
Yeah.
Within my own, I've created a lot of communities for my clients, and I've created opportunities to bring people together. And then I think because I do so much work in the social media and digital space, I've attracted my own community of people that consume my work and consume my content and follow me. So I think there are 3 different communities out there. There's a community that I influence through the content that I create. There's a community that I lead, which is typically people that have done business with me, that are attached to me or connected to me in some way. And then there are communities that I choose to be part of because I want to learn and network and grow. And so the first one just kind of happens automatically because I'm committed to creating content. The second one requires me to be a leader and to be thoughtful about how I manage it. And the third requires me to show up and just invest in those relationships.
That's amazing. And it's so important. And these could be acted like hobbies, right? It could be not just business communities, but it could be just you have something that you have interest in, right? Of learning a new topic or something that you've always wanted to do, right? And now that you're able to be a part of it, learn more, right? And constant learning is so critical to be successful in life or business and have a healthy life, right? So that's amazing. So I do want to thank you for your time and some valuable input that you provided the audience members. So how can some of the members get a hold of you, reach you, check out your website or whatnot, Lisa?
Well, the best way for people to reach me is just to go to my website, lisalarter.com. I mean, everything that I do is connected to that website in some way. If you go to that website, you can connect to me through social media. A lot of times I share what I'm doing on social media before I even make it to my website, because I really believe in, I call it invitation marketing. So I like to co-create with my audience, and I will throw ideas out there and see who wants to participate, and often sell out of experiences before they've even made it to my website. So the best thing to do would be to follow my work on social media and come to my website.
Amazing. Well, thanks a lot, Lisa. I really want to, acknowledge that you gave up a lot of your time today, and you had some very valuable input for the audience members. So I want to thank you. And if you're ever in Toronto, give me a call. I know you spend a lot of time out east and down south, but if you're ever in Toronto, give me a call and we'll hang out.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Lisa.
Okay. Take care.